What's up, everybody? Welcome into Hawk Talk on Melrose. I am Collin, joined today with Tyler, going over Iowa's 47-7 victory over UMass. Special night in Kinnick Stadium as Kirk Ferentz surpassed Woody Hayes for the most wins in Big Ten history with 206 wins. Don't know if that's ever, if anybody's ever going to surpass that. I saw like James Franklin, for example, is at like 103, and he's been at Penn State for a while. Quite the milestone. Obviously, we wish it would have happened last week against Iowa State. I think it would have felt even better, but nonetheless, it was awesome to see being in the stadium. We stayed until the very end. They did the interview over the speakers in Kinnick Stadium, and seeing Kirk swarm into the tunnel, just an unbelievable night. And there's nothing better than when Kirk Ferentz gets emotional, because I think it gets us all kind of emotional too. And, you know, we obviously have our differences sometimes. You know, we nitpick at some of the things that he does, but at the end of the day, he's such a leader. And I'm obviously very grateful that he is our head football coach.
Yeah, I think, you know, you brought up a good point, Collin, where you talk about that this record might stand for the rest of the time or for a really long time.
Yeah, for at least a while.
in this day and age of college football, dude, like with NIL and transfer portals, it's these types of coaches, like they're almost like out of the game. You look at a guy like Nick Saban, right, who's just like, this is not the same type of college football anymore, and he retired. Or guys, you know, take opportunities, bigger opportunities or different opportunities for themselves, their family, for money, whatever it is. And you know, I think Kirk talked about it kind of in the press conference after the game too, and he just mentioned, like, he's like, you really miss out on some cool opportunity or cool things, cool opportunities if you just jump ship. And so, you know, I think that's partly why he stayed, but also he just talked about the guys that have stuck with him, you know, the Phil Parkers of the world and guys like that, and obviously all the players too. Like, It doesn't happen without them. So. Yeah, you're right. We have our differences with Kirk. Sometimes we get really annoyed with him and kind of, you know, wish he wasn't as stubborn in some areas. But honestly, dude, like when he officially passed Woody Hayes, it's like, man, we've had it pretty damn good here at Iowa. Yeah,
we definitely have. And that day, whenever that day comes, when, you know, he announces his retirement, it's definitely going to be very emotional, because pretty much my entire life, right? He's been head coach at Iowa. But yeah, let's get into the game. We're recording this on Sunday morning, so cheers to an Iowa victory. We're drinking some coffee right now.
Yes, sir.
You know, yesterday, you can look at the game two ways, right? If Iowa goes out and looks bad again, right, like the Albany game, we're criticizing, we're being negative, the fan base is being negative. But like yesterday, we did what we needed to do. Was it picture perfect? No, but I thought for the most part, very positive outcome. And then you see like, oh, it's UMass, or, you know, this is what should happen. And I agree with that, but I'm just happy we got the win. We saw some things that we wanted to see. Now that we enter conference play, we got a huge game, and we'll talk about it here soon against Rutgers on Friday night. But I was very pleased with last night's performance. It's literally started right from the gates. And when you think of Iowa, we usually don't do this right away. I think you and I were even questioning why we are receiving the ball, which we do a lot, but we're like, God, why do we do that? Because we usually get a 3-and-out, or we just don't do anything. And to see us 3 plays to go down the field, the first one to Sam Phillips for, I don't know, probably 40, 45 yards. And then the RPO to Seth Anderson. Great read by Mark and a great throw by Mark. And that kind of set up the rest of the game. Go back to the Albany game. I don't know. Mark was either just very nervous. He was juiced. I mean, it was probably a little bit of both. Yep. And he probably doesn't complete that pass against Albany. And so you're seeing him kind of take those next steps, which is big time, right? Because the Iowa State game definitely looked better than the Albany game, but still wasn't perfect. And then this game, he's definitely improved even more. Once again, there's some things that he needs to work on, but I thought for the most part, he looked really good. And then one last thing before you jump in here, when you look at this week 3 game, whether, you know, we beat Iowa State or not, this game we always struggle. Last year against Troy, down 14-10 at half. 2 years ago against Western Michigan, up 14-10 at half. The Nevada game in 2022, we only won 27-0. And then go back to Colorado State in 2021, we were down 14-7 at half. So this week 3 game is always tricky because it's right before conference play. It's right after the Iowa State game. And so I literally can't complain about this game at all last night.
No, I agree with you. And real quick before I forget, like the 2 biggest things that I think we were concerned about after watching 2 weeks of Iowa football is the slow starts.
Yep.
And you hit on that, receiving the ball and going and marching down in 3 plays for a touchdown. And then also taking a shot, right? Seeing more explosive plays. And you saw that on the first pass attempt and completion to Sam Phillips. 2 great signs. And yes, everybody, again, is going to point out it's UMass and this is what you're supposed to do. But yes, that's what we're supposed to do. You mentioned it years past. I don't know if we do that in this game because it's a little bit of an emotional hangover from either a win versus Iowa State or a loss, right? Yep. And then, you look ahead a little bit. It's, you're at Rutgers on a short week. It's easy to look ahead in that type of game. So the way we came out, dude, I mean, me and you were actually kind of mad that we received the football. We were like, why? Why do we do this? Why don't we just take it at half? And man, they actually proved us wrong right there.
They really did.
So that was great to see. And then, just you can't have it both ways if you're an Iowa fan. You can't be upset when we don't play good against Albany. And then when we do this against UMass and you're like, well, this is what we're supposed to do. It's like, enjoy the win. We saw a lot of productive things in this game, and you have to be happy as an Iowa fan.
Yeah, and it was just good to see the wide receivers getting involved. I mean, Sam Phillips, 3 catches for 75 yards. Seth Anderson with a couple touchdown passes to start the game. Saw guys like KJ Parker get a touchdown pass. Dayton Howard even got a pass, which, I talked about in the last episode. Let's get some of these guys more involved.
Not to interject real quick, but it was really good to see yesterday. 12 different guys caught a ball during this game, which is something that I think we've been really looking to see is other guys step up, not just maybe the top guys, right? And so it was really good to see running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends really get involved today.
Mark Gronowski started the game off 8 for 10, and then he finished the game 16 for 24 for 179 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Obviously didn't play in the fourth quarter. You take, 3 drop balls?
Yep.
I would say at least 3, and I think all 3 were catchable. So probably looking at like 19 for 24, which is, 16 for 24 is still really good, 67%. He actually finished the game 7 for 7. His last 7 throws were all catches. So just an overall pretty good game by Mark. And then you had that 15-yard rush where did the spin move and kind of, that
was cool.
Pushed off the guy. And those are just plays that we love to see as Iowa fans because it's been so long when we've seen a quarterback that can do that. And so for the most part, despite still not getting over 200 yards for Mark, right? That's kind of something that we were hoping to see. But I think considering he didn't play in the fourth quarter, and then I also think you have to take this into consideration, and this is not like an excuse, but when you look at our special teams, when Caden Weegan returns a 95-yard punt, well, there's an entire possession that the offense isn't out there. And then some of his other punt returns were really good. I think, didn't he finish with like 200 some return yards?
200 total yards in the game, and it was like at least like 180 some on punt alone.
So when you're setting up, instead of at the, let's just say hypothetically, the 50-yard line, we're at the 40-yard line, right? Smaller field, you're not going to get as many yards. And I've said this numerous times with Iowa's total offense. You can't really look at total offense. I'm more looking at, yards per play, yards per completion, scoring offense. Yesterday, yards per play, 6.1, yards per completion, 11.1, which is pretty good. Really good to see. And then even seeing, Hank Brown coming in, 5 for 7, should have connected on KJ Parker, but he made up for it with a touchdown later on, 55 yards and a touchdown pass. Overall, not the most perfect game, but for the most part, I'm giving this an A- game. Because it could have really, we were nervous going to this game. Like, this could have been one of those games where we just didn't look good again. And then how are we feeling today? I get it's UMass. They are a terrible team. They probably lose to Albany. Like, they're that bad of a team. But you know what? That's what you're supposed to do against terrible teams. You're supposed to go out there and, first quarter up 20-0 like that. And you really look at this game, probably should have been a 51-0 game. You take away the block punt, which just can't happen. We'll talk about special teams here soon. Mm-hmm. And then the missed field goal, the missed PAT, and you're looking at a 51-0 ball game. 47-7 still a great score, but 51-0 obviously would have looked a little bit better. Yeah.
Going back to Mark really quick, Con, you could just tell from the jump he looked so much more comfortable today. Yeah. And I think that's, he has a couple games under his belt now. One in a really tough environment. He showed steady improvement each game, which is really good to see. I'm glad it's not the other way where he's kind of in that backwards trajectory where he's playing bad as the games go on. It's like, no, he's building towards something. He's working on what he needs to improve on every week. And you saw that kind of come full circle against UMass, which is, again, really good to see.
Yeah, and then one last thing before we get into the drive chart, which I'm going to pull up here if you're watching this on YouTube. Let's just talk a little bit about the rushing attack. Finished with 201 yards. Probably wasn't the best day running the football, but I thought overall Nathan McNeil coming in the second half, finished with 10 carries for 56 yards. I think Xavier Williams, I saw, got a little banged up, so hopefully he's okay. And then good news out of Ferentz postgame said that there's a chance that Moulton might be back versus Rutgers. Who knows if that's the case or not, but that's good news because if he has a chance versus Rutgers, he's probably back against Indiana. And I told you this yesterday in the stands, Tyler, that I'm really excited for him to be back because I like our running back room. I like Patterson. I like Xavier Williams and TJ Washington, kind of the gadget player, but I think we are missing our true running back one. And I think that's what Moulton is ultimately. Getting him back will be big time for us. So let's get into, I'm going to share the screen right now. I always like looking at this on stats broadcasts and looking at the drive chart because it really tells you, kind of paints you the picture. And you look at Iowa before we get into our defense. I mean, touchdown. That's exactly what you want. All in the first quarter. 3 plays, 68 yards, 7 plays, 39, 7 plays, 52. Once again, going back to what I said about like punt returns. I mean, we were starting in areas where we only needed 39 yards. We only needed 52 yards. We didn't have to go the length of the field. I mean, really, we only had ultimately 2 bad drives, and that was kind of in the second quarter. I thought we kind of, which this is just typical Iowa, we kind of take the foot off the pedal a little bit. But then right before half, getting that touchdown, 7 plays, 49 yards, that was the Mark's run right before half, was big time. And then you get in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter. This is crazy. Once again, because of that punt return, third quarter and fourth quarter combined, we only had 3 possessions. And we got a field goal touchdown. And then obviously the last possession, it was towards the end of the game, so we just ran it out. And really wish we would have tried to score again or even kick a field goal to make it 50-7, get a 50 burger, but it is what it is. I mean, 11 plays, 66 yards, but for the most part, very consistent and exactly what you want to see, when you're playing a team like UMass.
Yep. And the big thing that jumps out to me is like with the Iowa State game, you saw long, sustained drives, not many, it was kind of dink and dunk your way down the field. And that's kind of the opposite of what we saw yesterday. And again, it's UMass. That's what you hope to do, but we didn't do that against Albany. And so it was like we said, it's finally good to see that happen, even if it is against UMass.
And then let's switch the defense real quick. I feel like a lot of times we don't really talk much about the defense. I do think this defense is good. I think the lack of getting turnovers is what makes me think it's not maybe what it was a couple years ago. Yeah, and maybe that's like nitpicking because it's like, man, you're not going to be 2022, 2023 defense every single year, and I get that. But the lack of turnovers does kind of annoy me a little bit because when you're facing UMass, Albany at home, you would just think that at least one of those games we would get an interception or a fumble or something. So that is something that I really hope we start doing, especially when you get into some of those games against Penn State and Oregon. I mean, it might come down to that. That might help us, right, in those games. But once again, I'm not nitpicking because you look at the drive chart for UMass, just a terrible game for them. Outside of their one and only touchdown where they started at the 21-yard line because of the block punt, they ultimately couldn't do anything. Their longest drive was 32 yards, which finished. They didn't even get anything on that drive because it was turnover on downs. Just a really good day defensively for Iowa. Those first 3 drives just set the tone. They were 3 plays minus 4 yards, 3 plays minus 1 yards, 3 plays minus 10 yards. They were minus 15 yards going into the second quarter, which is unbelievable. And I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit here. We'll go back to the defense, but talking about that punt block, really need to clean that stuff up, right? Special teams, it's been kind of up and down, right? You got Caden Weegan that looked great yesterday, looked bad last week, right? You could see the punt block, some of the missed PAT, missed field goals. Really got to clean that stuff up going into Big Ten play, because like right now, if you told me, hey, next week Rutgers blocks a punt, that kind of could really swing the game. Against UMass, it doesn't really matter. But against a Big Ten opponent, I don't care who it is, it can. And so we really need to clean that up. I'm almost kind of happy it happened. If it was going to happen, I'm glad it happened against UMass because it's a teaching moment. I thought that particular play, it looked like they were sending the house, and it just looked like we didn't have enough blockers. Like I from the get-go, I was kind of like, this feels like this is going to be a block punt. And so that's something that they just, got to fix over this next week, and hopefully they can, because outside of that, this UMass team would not have scored at all. And I'm saying that confidently.
Yeah. Just a couple things. Like you talk about the turnovers with the defense. It's a great point. I think it's dating back to last year. It's like, what now, 5 games in a row without a turnover?
Yeah. Something like that.
Crazy. I think it was before that. It was like Iowa has never gone that, more than like a 3 or 4 game stretch without a turnover in the Kirk Ferentz era. So we're in a big drought right now. I think we're due. But I think we have to find a way to create turnovers. I think that starts with maybe some of that pressure from the defensive line, which I think we finally started to see a little bit yesterday, registering, pressures and sacks and stuff like that. And then, but again, like you said, with the defense yesterday, they were 0 for 10 on 3rd down, 0 for 2 on 4th down. How much better can you be on defense?
Exactly. Yep. So, finished with 119 yards, and that's with our backups essentially coming in like middle of the 3rd quarter.
Yeah. And we should provide a little context. You're exactly right. It's like when we talk about Mark, or we talk about like the defense, it's like this game was over by halftime. And we pulled everybody, basically early in the 3rd quarter. So this is the stats and the total offense and the, even the defense, like the junk yardage that the UMass got towards the end of the game were against our backups and stuff like that. So it was going to be a lot worse than even what the score suggested.
Yep. And this is what I like about these games, and it doesn't seem like it happens too often with Iowa, even when we play teams like this. But I love seeing the backups coming in and getting a lot of game reps, like in the 4th quarter. All the backup defensive guys were in there. And then you saw, like on the sideline, like where we sit at, you saw all like the first stringers, going nuts when there was a nice tackle or something like that. It's just good to see. And, number one, it gives them rest, right? They're not out there the entire game having to play a bunch of snaps, but it gives some of these younger dudes who, may need to step up at some point this season if there's an injury or whatever. So really good to see. That is it for game talk with the UMass game. Now we flip the page, and it's a short week. You mentioned it, Friday night game at Rutgers. This is a game that I think going into the season, we kind of circled because it's a kind of a tricky game, because Rutgers, they want this game. It seems like we always beat them. They're 3-0. It's probably going to be, since it's a Friday night game, I'm sure there's going to be a decent amount of fans in the stands. Rutgers is one of those games or teams where I believe they're kind of a fair weather fan base, but if there's a big game, they're undefeated, they'll get a crowd there, and it's going to be a tough game for Iowa. But I just think if you can carry that momentum yesterday, I really want to continue to see us, and we didn't really do it a whole lot yesterday, but the RPO, because I do think Mark, and I'm not talking just strictly the slow mesh, I'm just talking RPO in general. I think that's where Mark is most comfortable with. And so if we can start getting that going, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of the slow mesh against Rutgers. And then, their offense, and granted, they really haven't played anybody, so it's hard to say this. It's just like, you look at Minnesota last week, they go win 66-0, and it's like, oh my gosh, they're looking, and then they lose versus Cal. So we don't really know how good their offense is, but they do have some playmakers. They have a stud wide receiver. They got a quarterback that's been there for a long time. And so defensively, we got to show up, hopefully get a turnover, right? Generate pressure. But I think if we can play like we did against Iowa State, where we held Rocco in check, right, for the most part, and they couldn't really do anything. And if you say, like, we're going to spot Rutgers 16 points like we did against Iowa State, I think we have a really good chance of going into New Jersey and getting the dub. And then, and this is why this is so big. If you can get that dub, you get an extra day of rest for the Indiana game. And Indiana has a huge game this next weekend against Illinois, which is a Saturday night game. So Iowa has a full day advantage of getting rest and getting prepared for Indiana. So that's why huge match. I mean, this is every game's a must win, I think, but this is 100% a must win. You just can't be 2-2 going into Indiana. You got to be 3-1. And not only that, but if you're just talking atmosphere and just a huge game inside Kinnick in 2 weeks, got to win this game.
Yeah, it's a must win. It's a critical game because and for Indiana, but also just in terms of the rest of the schedule. I mean, we talked about it. I think we both before the season said, hey, we play good on the East Coast. This should be a win. And I still feel that way. Nothing's really changed my mind on that, except for the fact that, yes, like, again, Rutgers hasn't played anybody, but their offense is putting up a lot of points right now. And so they're doing what they're supposed to do against these inferior opponents. So that makes me a little nervous. I think they're a little bit maybe better of a team or peaking even a little earlier than I thought they would, even given the opponents. But yeah, I think the biggest thing, Collin, and we saw it, this last week, is we have to start fast. We cannot get into the second, even third quarter, and for our offense to get clicking. This has to get going from the jump. And Mark talked about it, how that was the biggest emphasis going into this game against UMass this week, and that has to continue going forward, especially in the Big Ten and on the road.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just can't start like you did against Iowa State, where not only are you putting just the offense in a bad spot, but you're putting Mark in a bad spot when it's run, pass, and when it's 3rd down and 8 and it's an obvious passing down. Just can't let that happen. So
then you put our defense in a bad spot, right?
Then you put, exactly.
So it's hard to not give up any points when your defense is in their own 20-yard line because our offense threw a pick or whatever. So
exactly. I just want to see a crisp, like, especially when you talk opening drive, scripted plays. I'm hoping we can come out and we can kind of get the momentum on our side, get the crowd kind of out of it. You just don't want them to get the crowd into it. And, they have a lot of momentum, in the first quarter, because then it could be tough. So yeah, you look at Rutgers, just real quick, they're 3-0. They beat Ohio 34-31. If I'm Iowa, hey, just look at the tape again and see what Ohio did against them. I mean, I think Ohio's actually a pretty good team, by the way. They're not bad. They put up a fight against Ohio State. They beat West Virginia, but see what they did. They put up 31 points. Miami of Ohio, they won 45-17, and then they played Norfolk State, and they won 60-10. Scrub teams for the most part, but that doesn't mean that this Rutgers team isn't bad either. It's going to be a tough game. They want this game. I think Greg Schiano, it is weird. I mean, Iowa has had Rutgers' number. It feels like every time we play them, we find a way to win. It's going to be a really, really tough task. I hate Friday night games for the most part, but I'm kind of excited that this is a Friday night game. It'll be fun, working Friday and having something to look forward to. And hopefully we get the win. So then Saturday, we don't have to worry about a game. We can just sit back, relax, watch college football, and really enjoy. I mean, because going to all the home Iowa games, I really love the away games because I can actually, watch college football for the most part. And it's just, you're not traveling. Yeah, exactly. I'm really looking forward to next weekend. But, well, that will do it for this episode. Short and sweet and to the point. We will hopefully have a very positive episode coming out next weekend, going over the Rutgers game. Because I'm super pumped about the Indiana game in 2 weeks, but got to win. You got to beat Rutgers, right?
Take care of business.
Yep. Because if if we can get the win, and if let's just say Indiana beats Illinois, I mean, you're talking a huge game inside Kinnick, possibly big noon kickoff, which I don't really want an 11 a.m. game, but it is what it is. But regardless, even if they lose against Illinois, still a huge game. Indiana coming in, obviously a playoff team from last year. But, well, that will do it for this episode. Thank you guys all for listening. Until the next time, have a good rest of your week, and go Hawks.